This is a prison, Malate, near Milan. It is a model jail that attracts visitors from all over Europe, keen to learn from its policies of rehabilitation and reinsertion into active life. It has workshops and even stables. But it's the only one of its kind in Italy. This is more typical of the national situation, despite penal reforms. This is Regina Coeli in Rome, a 17th century former monastery. The first surprise is that everyone is out of their cells. One reform allows cell doors to stay open during the day. Other reforms have allowed the early release of more than 10,000 inmates to serve alternative punishments. The European Court of Human Rights likes the reforms, but their application's patchy and building programs are stalled. One prisoner told us that in his block there were cases of scabies, and there were only 2 showers for 72 inmates.
When you live behind bars, things that are trivial in the outside world become vital. For example, waiting too long for a shower can blow up into a major dispute.
So there's tension?
Yes, all the time.
But there's worse. Some showers in Como prison in the north are barely fit for purpose. They leak into the surrounding cells as if rain was coming in and are almost dangerous. The prison was built in the 1980s. Since then, the showers have not been renovated.
They told us they'd be repainted more than a year ago.
Even worse conditions can be found, like in Trani in the southeast. Toilets are in full sight, next to dinner tables and facing entrances. Alessio Scandura works for penal reforms and says there are too many problems to mention.
Italy's prisons are very old and a lot of renovation is needed in all of them. Any new building work or improvements are done in haste. In part a reaction to the growing overpopulation of recent years, with no long-term planning.
In Como, just like everywhere else, 3 people share a cell designed for 1. The European Court of Human Rights criteria on overpopulation are respected, but only just. This means that detainees have between 3 and 4 square meters each, the minimum to avoid penalties. In Italian law, they're supposed to have 9 square meters. The prison educators coordinator Giovanni Perricone tells us to see a special section designed to re-educate prisoners, especially drug addicts. But what should be at the heart of the prison's rehabilitation mission is too dangerous to use and has been closed off. Water leaks have brought down entire walls. Just next door is a special court built 20 years ago to try members of the Calabrian mafia, the 'Ndrangheta. Its several hundred meters of space was only used for a few months, and the prison desperately needs that extra space, but it's closed. So reforms may be in place, but there's not enough money to start much renovation. Too much money was wasted in the past. For example, Spinazzola in Puy has a prison that closed only after a short period, and it's far from being the only one. A prison officers' union representative tells us money was thrown out of the window in the past.
They spent €200,000 to improve conditions, only just before it was closed.
1,000 kilometers to the north in Revere, it's the same story. An almost finished prison built in the last decade, but never completed and abandoned. The local mayor shows us around.
This would have been a cell with its own bathroom. The building, as you see it, cost overall €2.5 million. Unfortunately, as you can see, it was a massive waste of money. It was never used and cannot be used in this state. So it is clear that taxpayers' money was very, very badly spent indeed.
80% of Italy's prisons are over 100 years old. At least one dates from the 15th century. And what can be done within them? That's the real question, because there are not enough activities for inmates, a problem recognised at ministerial level. As a direct consequence, prisons are failing in their primary duty to get criminals back on the straight and narrow. This is why Italy's repeat offender rates are among Europe's highest. One prisoner has a better living space, Regina Celli's scribe.
Some people in here don't know how to write, so I write their requests for them, to the prison authorities or friends, or help them with legal documents. By doing this, I've learnt a lot. I've almost become a lawyer myself, so I help others, and some I've even been able to help get released with appeals I've written. As my activities mean I'm allowed out of my cell more than others, I can do a little more for other people, as most of them stay in their cells all day long. They don't know what else to do.
Latina is a small prison not far from Rome. Following the 9 square metre rule, it should house 76 prisoners. Instead, there are 144. The prison director shows us the small gymnasium created thanks to charitable donations, because the money she gets from the state is not enough.
Last year we received just 1,070 euros.
For the whole year?
Yes, and it's supposed to cover educational activities. The law says we have to provide support for the detainees.
So that means you have less than 10 euros per person?
Yes.
And that's supposed to cover all their education and rehabilitation needs?
Yes, and this is why we have appealed for volunteers. We now have 50 coming to help, but that's not enough.
So without the unpaid volunteers, you wouldn't be able to do anything?
Nothing.
Despite everything, Latina prison works minor miracles. Many were illiterate on entering, but now know how to read and write.
I knew absolutely nothing, but now, thanks to my teacher, I've succeeded, even if it took me some time.
So now you're qualified?
Yes, I get my school leaving certificate next week. When I wrote to tell my niece, she said, "It's super. It's the most beautiful letter you have ever written to me because it's in your hand." I was very moved because I wanted this for my nephews.
As we walked around, we were surprised to see a number of elderly inmates. We do not know what their offences were, but we couldn't help wondering if prison was the right place for them. But the problem is, this sort of detainee can't be placed under house arrest because they have no home, or it's unsuitable. Prison's the only solution, as there are not enough day centres or similar establishments.
We've become a dustbin for all the people society doesn't want to see at large. So the homeless, the mentally ill, the old, and all those in precarious situations wind up here. We're left with the difficult problem of managing this.
This is not what you're supposed to be doing.
No, absolutely not.